Hi, everyone. My name is Patrick Beymer, and I'm a doc student in the Educational Psychology and Educational Technology program at Michigan State University. I'm here today with Dr. Katie Muenks. Dr. Muenks is a postdoctoral researcher in the Mind and Identity and Context Lab in the Department of Psychological and Brain Sciences at Indiana University, where she's working with Dr. Mary Murphy. So I first want to thank you, Katie, for joining me today.
Oh yeah, no problem. I mean, the first thing I think is obviously just that you're interested in what they're doing and that it aligns with your own interests and your own expertise and any skills that they're looking for. Make sure that you obviously have those skills, or that it just seems like a good fit. In terms of what you could bring to the table. You can do additional research, obviously, on the lab or the PI, and just get a sense for, how big is the lab and what journals do they publish in, what kind of methods do they use in that lab. If that information isn't immediately available, in the job ad itself, just to see if you think that that's a good fit for you. Also just things like the location of the university, the size of the department, like all of those kinds of things. And I guess with balancing between different, jobs, I think you just have to be good at time management, figure out when deadlines are, mark them off, and just keep organized.
Right, for sure. So do you have some tips on preparing application materials, or if you're sending emails, I guess, to professors, some things you might want to include?
For emails to professors, I think you want to keep it somewhat short, but maybe kind of talk a little bit about your expertise, your interests, what lab you are coming from, when you're planning to graduate, and sending along your CV to make sure that that looks nice. And that is a tip that I have, is to have other people look at your CV, because I think a lot of people, that's like not something typically people that send around for feedback, but actually the CV, you can get a lot of good tips from people about how to organize your CV, how to highlight the things that you want to highlight, and that there's not a lot of extraneous information, that everything in there is really crisp and clean and those sorts of things. So I would definitely have people look over your CV. As far as application materials like research statement, cover letter, definitely start early on those and have people read over them, especially faculty, and go through lots of drafts and assume that you're going to have to do lots of drafts. I think that the hardest thing to do is going to be the research statement for most people. And typically that's between 2 and 4 single-spaced pages is typically what they'll ask for. And that's hard to just kind of make sure all of your research is into a coherent story, or, that there's, lines of research. So you don't need to go into a ton of detail about every single study that you've done, but you want to make sure that it tells kind of a story and represents your sort of program of research, or what you hope to do. And then for your cover letter, that's pretty short, and that's going to focus more on the fit between, so you really want to focus for that on the job ad, and really making, or the lab that you'd be joining, really aligning your own interest and skills with that posting. So you want to show how you're a good fit and how you would contribute to that lab. And then for letters of recommendation, that's another thing that people will typically ask for, whether you apply more formally or informally. Definitely just, the typical things with that, of making sure that you let your letter writers know where to send things, what to send, and give them plenty of time, and just, clear guidelines and things like that.
Right. So now that you're in your postdoc, how are you able to incorporate some of your own interests while still focusing on the large scale interests of the lab that you're part of?
If you are working in a lab that already aligns with your interests pretty well, it should be pretty natural in terms of making sure that you're doing projects that you're personally interested in, but also are within the lab's purview. So it's a good idea during the interview process to kind of get a sense for what the lab studies, what they're interested in, what methods they use, what types of studies they do, what populations they look at, and that can kind of give you a sense, again, of how you fit. I also think with postdocs, it's pretty variable about what the responsibilities are or what they would expect you to do. So some people hire postdocs to help manage or run larger projects. Some people hire postdocs just because they have a bunch of data lying around and they want someone to analyze it and write it up. So it's a good idea to talk to, whoever would be your postdoc mentor or advisor about what would be the responsibilities that you would be doing in the lab. And if they do have data lying around that you would analyze, what does that data look like? What variables do they look at? Could you, are there questions that you have that you could answer in that data? So I think that that's really important. But I also think a lot of people who hire postdocs definitely understand that for most people, it is a time to try to publish as much as possible and try to become competitive for the tenure track job market. So just having a conversation about what is the breakdown of responsibility and making sure that you're getting the time that you need to, write or publish if that's your main goal during that time.
Do you have any last advice for those who might be looking for postdoc opportunities in the future?
So just think about the skills, like, again, as I've been saying, the skills that you want to develop. So really, really think about, what do I want to get out of my postdoc, and, write a list or, think through that to make sure that you're getting what you want to get out of it. And if there are certain things that you want to learn or skills that you want to build, make sure that you're kind of looking for those types of opportunities that will help you do that.
Right. Well, Katie, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.